And I tell them, I said, hey, stop whining. What do you do? I said, we all have a responsibility. What do you think, the action comes only for the whole world out of Washington, the White House? No. I said, most of the action is happening on a local level and on a state level.
So people should just ignore Donald Trump then when he talks about the environment?
I wouldn't say ignore it. I think you can be aware of it. You have to be aware of your obstacles, but you should not go and use them as an excuse, is my point. You know, you got to go all out. Do I have a vision? I mean, imagine that when I was 15 years old, my vision was to go to America and to be a bodybuilding champion and to get into acting and to do big movies, Hollywood movies. What do you think the obstacles there were? Endless amount of obstacles. And it was very difficult. It was a grind. So did I surrender? Did I go and whine? No. Because this is what I have to overcome. And I made it.
Real presidents that you looked for inspiration? And I guess it goes without saying you didn't look at the current president for inspiration.
No.
Hey folks, and welcome to the channel of today's series of Arnold Schwesneger and Robert De Niro expose Trump. In a pair of high-profile moments that captured the cultural and political divide in America, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Robert De Niro delivered scathing critiques of Donald Trump, though in sharply different tones. Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California and longtime environmental advocate, urged citizens not to waste energy complaining about Trump's climate change denial, famously telling the public to stop whining and focus on tangible solutions. Speaking at a 2024 climate summit, he acknowledged the frustration over Trump's repeated dismissal of global warming as a hoax, but insisted that outrage alone wouldn't reduce emissions or reverse environmental damage. We don't need more anger, he said. We need more action, more solar panels, more electric vehicles, more leadership at the local level. His message was one of pragmatic resilience. Instead of waiting for federal change, he encouraged states, cities, and individuals to lead the fight for the planet. In stark contrast, Robert De Niro unleashed a fiery verbal assault on Trump during an interview promoting the political thriller 0 Day, in which he plays a former president grappling with a nation in crisis. Drawing clear parallels to current events, De Niro didn't hold back, calling Trump an idiot, a moron, and a clown who poses a serious threat to democracy. How can someone so ignorant, so full of lies, so obsessed with himself even be considered for the highest office? De Niro asked, his voice rising. He's not just wrong, he's dangerous. He incited an insurrection, he undermines elections, he praises dictators, and people still follow him? It's insanity. Where Schwarzenegger focused on rising above the noise, De Niro leaned into the fury many Americans feel, giving voice to raw emotional resistance. I call him what he is, De Niro said. A con man, a bully, a disgrace. His comments sparked immediate backlash from Trump supporters, who accused him of elitism and divisiveness, while many others applauded his candor. Together, the two performances, Schwarzenegger's disciplined call to action and De Niro's unfiltered condemnation, reflect the dual response of the entertainment and political world to Trump's enduring influence. One rooted in solution-driven leadership, the other in moral outrage. One says, don't let him distract you. The other says, don't let him near power. Both in their own way underscore a deep concern for the future of American democracy and the urgency of confronting a figure who continues to polarize the nation.
As an immigrant to this country, I would like to say a few words to my fellow Americans and to our friends around the world about the events of recent days. Now, I grew up in Austria. I'm very aware of Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass. It was a night of rampage against the Jews carried out in 1938 at the Nazi equivalent of the Proud Boys. Wednesday was the day of broken glass right here in the United States. The broken glass was in the windows of the United States Capitol. But the mob did not just shatter the windows of the Capitol, they shattered the ideals we took for granted. They did not just break down the doors of the building that housed American democracy.
To add, in a blunt and hard-hitting commentary during a 2024 interview on climate and democracy, Arnold Schwarzenegger did not hold back in his assessment of Donald Trump, calling him the worst president in American history, and directly blaming him for inciting the January 6th Capitol insurrection. Known for his pragmatic conservatism and bipartisan approach to governance during his tenure as governor of California, Schwarzenegger used his platform to deliver a moral and political rebuke, framing Trump's leadership not just as ineffective, but as actively destructive to American values and democratic stability. The damage he did goes far beyond policies. Schwarzenegger said, Trump didn't just fail as a leader, he attacked the foundation of our democracy. He pointed specifically to the events of January 6, 2021, when a mob stormed the U.S. Capitol in an attempt to overturn the 2020 election. He lit the match, Schwarzenegger stated. He told people to come to Washington on January 6th. He told them to fight like hell, and when they stormed the Capitol, he watched it on TV and did nothing. That's not negligence. That's complicity, Schwarzenegger. An immigrant who became a U.S. citizen and served in elected office, emphasized the sacredness of democratic institutions. I came to this country because of its ideals, freedom, rule of law, peaceful transfer of power, he said. And Trump tried to destroy that. He spread lies about the election, pressured officials to change results, and then unleashed a mob on the people's house. That's not patriotism. That's treason to the Constitution. He also criticized Trump's dismissal of climate change as a hoax, calling it a dereliction of duty that endangered future generations. While other nations were investing in clean energy, he was rolling back protections and giving tax breaks to oil companies. Schwarzenegger said, he didn't just ignore the science, he mocked it. And while he played golf, California burned. What made Schwarzenegger's critique particularly powerful was his identity as a Republican and a former governor who governed with a focus on results. I'm not saying this as a Democrat, he emphasized. I'm saying it as an American, and as someone who believes in accountability. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. If you break the law, if you attack democracy, if you endanger the country, you can't just walk away clean. His comments went viral, praised by many for their clarity and courage, especially coming from a conservative figure who once shared some of Trump's party affiliations. Critics on the right dismissed him as out of touch, but Schwarzenegger stood by his words, urging citizens to remember January 6th not as a protest, but as a warning, and calling Trump the worst president ever. Schwarzenegger wasn't just offering an opinion, he was issuing a historical judgment rooted in democratic principle, and in doing so, he reminded the nation that leadership is not about popularity or power, but about protecting the country from those who would destroy it from within.
Supporters. What's your view of Donald Trump?
You know my view of Donald Trump. He's a monster. He should not be allowed. Listen.
Let's back up, people. Give him a little room. Little breathing room. Let's give him a little room.
He cannot be president of the United States again. Never, ever.
Outside the Manhattan courthouse during the final days of Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial in April 2024, actor and outspoken political activist Robert De Niro delivered a fiery condemnation of the former president, calling him a monster in front of a crowd of supporters, protesters, and media. Standing on a makeshift platform near the courthouse steps, De Niro, wearing a Vote t-shirt and flanked by fellow activists, spoke with raw emotion moments after Trump entered the courtroom for what would become his historic conviction on 34 felony counts. He's not just a liar, he's not just a con man, he is a monster, De Niro declared, his voice resonating with anger and urgency. He attacked our democracy. He incited a violent insurrection. He paid hush money to cover up his affairs while lying to the American people. And now, we finally have accountability. De Niro, a longtime critic of Trump, framed the trial not just as a legal proceeding, but as a moral reckoning. This isn't about politics, he said. This is about right and wrong, about truth and lies, about whether we live in a country where no one is above the law, or whether we slide into authoritarianism, where the rules only apply to everyone else. He spoke passionately about the dangers of Trump's influence, particularly his repeated attacks on the press, the judiciary, and election integrity. He doesn't believe in facts. He doesn't believe in decency. He believes in power, his power, and he will destroy anything and anyone who stands in his way. De Niro also referenced January 6th, calling it a day of shame and accusing Trump of trying to overthrow the government because he couldn't accept losing. The actor, known for his intense performances and deep commitment to civic engagement, urged Americans to stay vigilant. Don't look away, he said. Don't normalize this. A man who lies, cheats, and incites violence should never be rewarded with the highest office in the land. De Niro's appearance drew a massive crowd, with chants of "Thank you, Robert," and "Democracy" breaking out as he stepped away from the microphone. His comments quickly went viral, shared widely across social media and news networks, with many praising his courage and clarity. While some Trump supporters denounced the remarks as inflammatory, De Niro stood by them, later telling CNN, "I called him what he is. If speaking the truth is hate, then I hate corruption. I hate tyranny. I hate what he's done to this country." in that moment outside the courthouse, De Niro wasn't just an actor, he was a citizen demanding justice. And by calling Trump a monster, he gave voice to the fears of millions who see the former president not as a political figure, but as an existential threat to American democracy.
When the politicians in Washington don't care, you know what I say to them? Exactly what I said in my movie Kindergarten Cop to the kids. Stop whining. Stop whining.
But you two have been
At a major climate summit in Los Angeles in 2024, Arnold Schwarzenegger delivered a direct and motivational message to activists, policymakers, and citizens, urging them to move beyond frustration and take decisive action in the face of political setbacks, including the resurgence of Donald Trump and his well-documented denial of climate science. In a widely shared video from the event, Schwarzenegger, standing before a crowd of environmental leaders and youth advocates, acknowledged the anxiety surrounding Trump's return to the political spotlight, but rejected despair or outrage as productive responses. I know a lot of you are worried. I know you're angry that Trump is back, saying climate change is a hoax, promising to bring back coal, threatening to undo all the progress we've made, Schwarzenegger said, his tone firm but encouraging. But here's what I'm telling you. Stop whining. Stop complaining. Stop waiting for someone else to fix it. He emphasized that real change doesn't come from reacting to political noise, but from leading with innovation, policy, and local action. When I was governor, we didn't wait for the president to act, he reminded the audience. We passed the toughest environmental laws in the nation. We showed the world that California could be a leader, not just in economy, not just in entertainment, but in saving the planet. Schwarzenegger pointed to tangible progress, the rapid expansion of solar and wind energy, the growth of the electric vehicle market, and bipartisan state-level initiatives that have continued despite federal rollbacks. The future is not decided by one man in one office, he said. It's decided by millions of people doing the right thing every single day, installing solar panels, voting for green policies, holding companies accountable. He also challenged the audience not to give Trump more power than he deserves. He can say whatever he wants, but he can't stop the sun from shining or the wind from blowing. He can't stop innovation. He can't stop the next generation from demanding better. The video of his speech quickly gained traction online, with clips of Schwarzenegger saying "stop whining" being shared across platforms like X, Instagram, and YouTube. While some criticized his language as dismissive, many praised his no-nonsense, solutions-oriented approach, particularly coming from a former governor who governed during a time of political division. Ultimately, Schwarzenegger's message was one of empowerment. Don't waste your energy hating the darkness, he said. Be the light. Be the solution. That's how we win, not by screaming at the noise, but by building the future.
City a lot. And that's why it's so weird that Donald Trump is just across the street. Because he doesn't belong in my city. But around the country, people who didn't know him, as we did, started to support him. They bought into his bullshit.
During a high-profile press conference in May 2024 endorsing President Joe Biden's re-election campaign, Robert De Niro delivered a blistering critique of Donald Trump, branding him a tyrant and a buffoon in a fiery speech that captured national attention. Speaking in Philadelphia alongside Democratic leaders and fellow celebrities, De Niro pulled no punches, framing the 2024 election as a fundamental battle for the soul of American democracy. Donald Trump is not just a bad president, he's a tyrant in the making, De Niro declared, his voice steady but charged with emotion. He doesn't believe in the Constitution. He doesn't believe in the rule of law. He believes in power, his power, and he will destroy anything and anyone who stands in his way. He pointed to Trump's role in the January 6th Capitol insurrection, his attempts to overturn a free and fair election, and his repeated threats to weaponize the federal government against his enemies as proof of authoritarian intent. But De Niro didn't stop there. He also mocked Trump's demeanor and intellect, calling him a buffoon who treats the presidency like a reality TV show. He lies constantly. He can't even speak coherently. He rambles. He insults. He blames everyone else, De Niro said, and yet he still has the nerve to ask for power. This isn't leadership. It's a circus, and we're not buying tickets. De Niro emphasized that the stakes extended far beyond politics. This is about whether our democracy survives, he said. whether our children grow up in a country where truth matters, where elections are respected, where leaders are held accountable. He praised Biden for restoring dignity to the presidency and advancing critical climate, healthcare, and economic policies, contrasting his calm, steady leadership with Trump's chaos and self-obsession. The actor also addressed the emotional toll of the past decade, speaking directly to voters who feel exhausted by the constant turmoil. "I know people are tired. I know some want to look away," he said, "but you can't. Because if we let Trump back in, it won't just be 4 more years of madness. It could be the end of American democracy as we know it." His remarks drew a standing ovation from the audience and quickly went viral, with clips circulating across social media platforms under hashtags like #DeneroForTruth and #StopTheTyrant. While Trump supporters dismissed the comments as partisan theatrics, many voters, particularly independents and suburban moderates, praised De Niro for articulating the depth of the threat in clear, moral terms. Coming from one of America's most respected actors, De Niro's words carried cultural weight. By calling Trump both a tyrant and a buffoon, he captured the dual nature of the danger. A man who is not only absurd and undignified, but also genuinely dangerous in his ambitions. In doing so, De Niro didn't just endorse a candidate. He issued a rallying cry for civic responsibility, urging Americans to vote not out of loyalty, but out of love for their country. Hope you enjoy the video, and please do not forget to subscribe to the channel.